If you are someone who has had the tendency of attracting partners or being in relationships or forming relationships that haven't been the healthiest in the past, or maybe even right now, then this video is really going to help you out, because we're going to go into one of the core reasons why that's happening in the first place, which is daddy issues. Before I start talking about daddy issues, what I really want to start to speak about first is something that I break down in our Deep End program and at my Deep End retreats, which is something called our Love and Attraction template. Our Love and Attraction template is when we look for partners who recreate and remind us of the love that we had when we were a child. You see, the biggest challenge is that with most dads or with most caregivers who are male who were raising you as a child, even though they were doing the best that they could, with the level of awareness that they were at, the level of undealt with trauma and emotions that they were carrying around at that time of raising you, even though they were doing the best that they could at that time, they probably still weren't giving you that overflowing, overabundant waterfall of unconditional love. Maybe you were abandoned, or maybe for you it was feeling like you're just not good enough, that no matter what you did, that it was just never enough for the expectations of your dad. You always felt like you had to prove yourself. Or maybe for you, you grew up in a household where your dad or your caregiver who was male was physically, verbally, or emotionally abusive. Or maybe your dad was around and he was loving, but he just wasn't open-hearted. He just wasn't emotionally and physically expressive towards you with his love. What happens is our subconscious acts as a heat-seeking missile, looking for partners or forming relationships that models the love that we had when we were a child, because it's familiar. Our subconscious loves the known, so it will find ways to go back to the known because the unknown is scary. It can also be very challenging if you've gone through this circumstance as a child and you create this meaning, this story, this identity based on something that happened when you were a child. So for example, in the past, I was working with a client, I won't say her name just for privacy reasons, but her dad left when she was a child. And she created the story that from her dad leaving, that she was unlovable, that she wasn't good enough. That was the meaning that she placed on that event. To remain consistent with this story, with this identity of being unlovable, she would always attract partners that would validate that story of herself. Or when she would be in relationship, she would create circumstances so that she could validate and conform to this belief that she is unlovable. For example, when things were too good in a relationship with another man, she would find ways to sabotage the relationship by creating a fight or doing something where the man would get angry, and again and again and again this would happen to the point where the man would be like, you know what, I can't do this anymore, and he would leave. And then she could conform to this story of, you know what, this happened again. See, I'm unlovable, I'm not good enough. Every single man that I'm with, he leaves. Our subconscious, we're always going to find ways to conform to the identity that we hold for ourselves, especially when it's tied to our love template of our dad not being there when we were a child and the meaning that we created from that event of being unlovable. If you haven't gone through that situation, it can be very easy to judge that person, right? But my question to you is, what is your version of that? Maybe for you, your dad wasn't open-hearted and emotionally expressive, so you tend to attract partners who match that love that you had when you were a child from your dad because it feels familiar. So you're going to attract people who are very close-hearted, who aren't physically expressive, who aren't emotionally expressive. It can be very easy to justify why that is. Well, of course I'm attracting those types of people. Men around my area just aren't emotionally expressive. No one is open-hearted where I'm from. Really? Is that the truth? Or is that just your truth? Is that just a story that your mind has created because thinking elsewise would mean that you would have to let go of this story that you've had for so damn long since childhood? Maybe for you, it's when men are too good to you and they're too loving towards you, and you start to lose desire for them because there's not that chase, there's not that challenge anymore. Maybe your love template was not actually from how your dad was with you, but how your dad was with your mother. So for example, if your dad was verbally aggressive to your mom, then maybe for you, you find a version of your dad with other people that you tend to attract, and no matter what happens, no matter what relationship you're in, the man that you're with tends to always be verbally aggressive to you and verbally abuse you. Well, of course it's going to happen because it's familiar based on your love template from what was formed as a child. Now again, maybe you can't relate to that exactly, but what is your version of that? You might be thinking, okay, Matt, now that I know this, how do I actually change it? So So what I recommend that you do is I recommend that you start to create this awareness around who you have been dating in the past, because by looking at that patterns, you can start to predict the future if this pattern isn't changed. And by becoming aware of the pattern, that's when you can change it. We can't change something if we're not aware of it. So what I recommend that you do is look at the last 3 to 5 people that you've been in relationships with, or the last 3 to 5 people that you've dated but maybe just haven't formed a relationship with, and start to look at what are the unhealthy patterns or behaviors that that person was displaying, and then how does that relate to my love template or attraction template that was formed as a child based on how my dad was to me or based on how my dad was to my mom. Get a journal out and just start to do some deep thinking. I really hope that this video has helped you out. Give it a big thumbs up if it did. And I really love reading your comments because it keeps me going, and I read every single one. So if this video was helpful, I'd love to know in the comments what was the most insightful thing that you got from this video, because that way I feel this motivation to keep going with creating these videos. So if you haven't already, subscribe to this YouTube channel for more videos just like this. And until I see you all in the next video, remember to love all living beings, and most importantly, love thyself.